Jack is, you've got Mona's place, right? You've got, there's a few places. So Mona Best place is called what?
The Casbah.
The Casbah Club. You've got a place called the Morgue. There's another place called, well, Matthew Street has always got the Cavern Club. But that still is more jazz.
These are more teen. There's teen clubs versus, right, the jazz, like it.
These are coffee houses, right? They're right, but they like with a membership and stuff like that, Tony. Like, but they like, oh, so and so's got a, like Mona Best. She's got a huge Victorian house, and she just like takes the bottom out of it and like in the basement creates a club down there and stuff like that. But I mean, John, I think there's like, there's 700 people like at, her house at times. Like, it's stupid. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like,
I'm forgetting
like, oh, there's 100 people on
I've only seen, I've seen pictures, but I've never seen pictures of like what the whole space looks like or whatever. I just imagined it was, like a half the size of like a dive side place or where it's like packed to the gills. It's 150 people, but it's really that big. It's like,
I thought that like people started, like the Beatles started attracting more people there, and they did do multiple shows, and people would be outside the place. Maybe that's the way it worked, where you would start getting hundreds and hundreds of people there at one time. I know they got closed down for a little while because like neighbors had complained, but they popped right back up like a month later. Like somehow something was cleared, and they got clearance to do it, but they had a little downtime.
I'm kind of curious what to.
But I think it's actually, Tony, like this band from Trinidad. So, Alan Williams opens up a club called the Jacaranda, and Alan, who becomes, quote, the Beatles' first manager, he has got like, he needs to have bands play, like, and he's just like, the Quarrymen, they played there, but like, he would get a bunch of people in there. But there was a calypso band that, Trinidadian calypso band that would play there all the time and stuff like that. And they were the regular house band, if I'm not mistaken. And at one point they just like, they just, according to Alan Williams, and it's part of the legend, it's just like they just disappeared, But there was no malice. Like Alan Williams at first was like all pissy about it, but they started writing to him about this vibrant scene that was going on over in Hamburg and stuff like that. And as a matter of fact, could you send over another band? And then I think he sends over Derry and the Seniors, go over, they start playing. And then when he asked, I think Rory Storm, and who has Ringo Starr as the drummer, who eventually goes over. But they are going to play Butlins, which were these holiday camps that in Britain, like there's several of them all over the country and stuff like that. But they're these holiday camps that you would, you pay a flat fee and you would go to and stuff like that. And they had there's horseback riding and archery, and they've got whatever, all these different boating pastimes and this and that, but there's also entertainment. And so they hired, because the kids, rock and roll bands, we'll get these rock and roll bands. So you play 5 nights a week at Butlins or 7 nights a week at Butlins as well. So it was a good gig, and Rory Storm was just like, when he offered Ringo playing drums and stuff like that in the band, Ringo was just like, okay, I'll go and play, because they were going to play Butlins, and he was just like, there's lots of girls, so that Ringo was like, so I was in, so they ended up playing there, and they were just like, well, then who can we get? And that's when Alan Williams says, we'll send the Beatles over. And I think Derry and the Seniors that was the band that wrote back saying like, not those bums.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Everything for us.
That's a great story.
They'll ruin everything for us. And the Beatles end up going over. But that's how that kind of like how but I'd be lying to you to tell you I know how the Calypso band got wind of maybe we could go over to Hamburg and start playing, in some Cedar Reeperbahn bar, unless the Germans And I don't know that. That's a good question, though. It's just like, because they definitely came over and poached Liverpool bands. Like after, like Bruno Koschmidt came over to, Liverpool to scout bands to bring back over to Hamburg and stuff like that. But how they did it early on, did he do the same thing before, when it didn't really matter because, the Beatles became the Beatles, and it becomes part of the story. But how did he get that Calypso band over there in the first place? Who knew to go over there?
But is it right? And also that first trip though is kind of when Pete officially becomes part of the band, right? Like
they need a drummer.
Right?
And it's like literally 5 days before the band's leaving, they ask Pete Best because George goes, "Hey, I know that the guy over who's playing in the Blackjacks at." It's Mona Best's son. He's got a drum kit.
So are the drummerless Beatles playing the Casbah, or was like playing the Casbah a result of having Pete in the band?
They're playing drummerless. They pick up drummers. It's not like the rhythms and the guitars is the line. But they would pick up drummers here and there. Oh, we got Tommy Moore tonight. Oh, we got so and so. Like,
and they're doing covers anyway, so it's like
right. So, like on any given night, you might see him with a drummer, or you might not see him with a drummer. They didn't have quote a regular
like Jonathan
drummer.
Richman.
That's wild.
He ended up in the hospitals playing rolled up newspapers. But that's it.
Well, now Jonathan, now you always get just him and Tommy Larkins, right? So you always get Tommy Larkins, drummer, and Jonathan Richman. That's been.
Wasn't that how the Modern Lovers broke up? Like Jonathan Richman was like,
Dave Robinson,
like playing these shows and stuff like that, and being in clubs, like it's too exclusionary. I want to start playing like hospitals and schools and stuff, and like instruments. That's just another barrier between you and the audience.
He started to be like Dave Robinson, the guy who went on to start the Cars with, is like. He's like, it's like, yeah, no, you got to play quieter. You got to he's like, and he started taking away drums, and it's like, you got to play quiet. Eventually it was just like, what am I doing here? Because he wanted to, like, he didn't want, and that was the whole thing. Like, he never wanted to play the punk clubs or anything.
Whether it's true or not, like back when we all were falling in love with them, like, when I was reading about them, it was just one of those, and Jonathan just got to the point where he was just like playing a rolled up newspaper on his knee, and sort of singing along. You're like, nice. It's great. It's great. And then, the keyboard player, Jerry Harrison, goes off and joins the Talking Heads as well. Since you brought up Dave Robertson going to the Cars. He goes to the Talking Heads, and John and I just had a talk last weekend about the sins of being a Talking Heads fan as well, or how they've been co-opted by the jam band.
The fact that here we go again. The Talking Heads are in a unique place. Is that right? You have the Talking Heads have been, particularly the sort of stop making sense. It moves into like the jam band guys love them. Like it maybe back to Izimbra. Like, oh, this like totally kind of like we could be this jam band thing, right? And Remain in Light, even like it's that African jam band thing, kind of that works into their whole thing too, but.
But you're thinking too hard about it. Those guys aren't like these are all great. Like,
yeah, they're great. No, they're great. But I'm saying, but they also the Talking Heads totally fit into the Wine and Cheese WFUV crowd too. Absolutely, and they totally fit in the cool indie rock crowd. Like they actually they move amongst quadrants of like they're a band, and I think that's. That kind of what makes them a success. It's like, this is like intellectual college stuff, and it's also just like dance music, and it's girls like them. It's like,
I can't remember, John, if I was at an Elvis Costello concert or if I was at a Talking Heads concert. And if I was at a Talking Heads concert, I was wearing an Elvis Costello pin, or if I was at a Talking Heads concert, I was wearing an Elvis Costello pin, and had some guy walk up to me and go, you would wear an Elvis Costello pin, or you would wear, I can't remember what it was, but it was like, and it's just, and walked away kind of, and you're like, but I'm remembering it now, but like, I was, what the hell concert was it though? I think it was at Elvis Costello wearing a top.
You know what though?
It's
just so weird. It's
you're getting back at those. You're getting back at that guy by dissing FUV. People who listen.
So there it is.
People who are listening to.
FUV. That is the wine.
That guy
totally is the one. Like City Winery. It's like, I have friends who like talk about like they like City Winery, and I'm like, I get it. I like some of the musicians that play there, but it just it feels like a lifestyle to me.
that you can't get behind.
Right.
And I don't drive a Volvo or an Audi or it's like it's like a Swedish car. You need a Swedish car to go to City Winery with, ideally.
All right, I own the cheapest Swedish car.
It's new. A new purchase. It's
good on gas.
It is good on gas. My safe Subaru.
I drive a Subaru, so I always make fun of of my demographic, and they could easily be put into the FUV category.
We are like bullseyes for FUV people. That doesn't mean we got to like it or listen.
Well,
you know what I mean? We're like there's no reason why we wouldn't be FUV people except that we know better.
But I say all this, and I
doesn't mean I hate it.
Right.
Of course not. That's the thing. Is like it's to me. It's not the pieces. It's the whole.
Right.
I still contribute to them, and even though as I said before, it's on my memory there on the radio.
You have a preset for it.
On the presets, I'm bouncing back and forth.
Sure, why wouldn't it be?
Something comes up, and it's there's good stuff on there. It's not like I'm like, this is the best, and this is my station. But I give them their props, and
I consider I'm considering making FUV making fun of FUVs the same way. Like I find Portlandia funny.
It's like it's so true.
I recognize myself every now and then. There,
yeah, totally.
It would. At the end of the day, I mean, the simple way to boil it down is I feel like FUV has packaged a lot of my life, and I resent that my life gets packaged. Like they hit a lot of my touchstones, and therefore it's like, no, and this is you can't turn me into a statistic. That algorithm that makes you play that song I like, damn you.
Right.
Ultimately, though, like lately I've been hearing, and it's a guy that we all know from, because he's an old New York Times guy, like Pete Fornatel. And it's horrible. Like, he's horrible. Like, and his taste in music is horrible. He
took over the Danny Styles
a few times. And I'm just like, oh my God, you just like get everything wrong.
He took over. I believe he took over the Saturday night. Danny Styles used to have. I love that show. Danny Styles had the vintage radio basically, or be playing all those old 78s and stuff. Saturday night.
Cool.
The guy was like 80, 90 years old before he stopped doing what he was doing. But they kind of moved. No, not. And then that was like late at night. But on the weekends, on like WNYC, they would have like after 8 o'clock or whatever, would have radio music that was and it was. Pete Fornatel is now taking over that spot, and it's like, oh my God, that's who's going through the American Songbook now. So he's added like Bob Dylan to the great songbook and stuff like that.
It's like, and anything that's new that he plays, like ultimately it sounds like Dave Matthews anyway. You're like, yep, thanks for that, dude. It's awesome. Oh, it's not Dave Matthews though. Thanks.
When we first went on about this, and you mentioned like Gary Clark Jr., and I was saying, but the thing is though, if you're Gary Clark Jr., you don't have an outlet on the, it's like they do serve a purpose for that kind of stuff, like that music that wouldn't get played on top 40, and it doesn't fall into classic rock.